I'd like to provide you with an update regarding the officer-involved shooting that occurred yesterday afternoon. This is obviously a difficult time for everyone involved, and we're providing support to all those that were impacted. The investigation is now being led by the Alberta Serious Incident Response Team. This is standard procedure in an officer-involved shooting. To respect the integrity of the ongoing investigation, I'm only able to speak to the events leading up to the shooting. It is the purview of ASIRT to investigate and speak to everything that occurred during and after the shooting. Here's what I can tell you, and most of you have this information, but just to go over it. Yesterday morning, 2 uniformed North District members were following up on a missing person complaint in the 2800 block of 12th Avenue Southeast when they were approached by a member in the community. This citizen directed the officers to a truck that had been parked on the street since approximately 6:30 a.m. with a man sleeping inside and the engine running. The officers approached the vehicle, 1 member on each side, and attempted to communicate with the driver. At some point during the interaction, the situation escalated and the officer discharged his service firearm. The vehicle continued across the street over the front lawn and lodged itself into the front of the house. The driver of the vehicle was transported to hospital with life-threatening injuries. Based on the details I have so far, I'm confident that the officers involved responded as they've been trained to do so. As police officers, we have a duty to protect life. The officer made a split-second decision based on the circumstances as they rapidly unfolded in the belief that others were at risk. All members involved in the incident have the full support of the Calgary Police Service. Although I am limited as to what I can say, I will answer questions at this point.
How is the officer doing?
There's 3 things that can happen to a police officer that have a huge impact on him. One of them obviously is to be shot. The other one is to be charged criminally with something in the execution of your duties. The third that has a great impact on our officers is when they are involved in a shooting where they shoot somebody. It's extremely difficult. It's not what our officers expect to do on any given day, and that's why we support them through this whole endeavor.
And how long have the officers been on the force for?
We'll have that information for you from one of our public affairs people. One of them, the shooting officer, 18 months, as far as I understand. The other one, roughly 4 years, but has previous experience from another police service. But any other details regarding the officers will have to come from our folks in public affairs.
Chief, under what circumstances are officers trained to pull their service revolvers?
Anytime there's an imminent risk to themselves or a member of the community. And this is what's extremely challenging as a police officer. You have to assess a situation as it unfolds. And too often the situations unfold in a split second. And just to put this in context, it's roughly 11 o'clock in the morning. You're coming out from following up a complaint. You're walking back out to your vehicle when you're approached by a citizen who points out another vehicle that's been parked there for a while. They approach it to deal with it, and it quickly escalated from what was in essence a follow-up where they're at another address to one where a member's life was put at risk. I mean, at the end of the day, that's how rapidly these things can escalate. And officers are trained to do an assessment of the circumstance and respond with whatever force is appropriate to protect themselves or a member of the public.
How was the officer's life put at risk? We've heard from witnesses that the truck tried to run the officers over. Can you elaborate on that?
Actually, I can't elaborate on that. That is one of those things that ASIRT will speak to. But I can safely say that the response from the person they approached was such that the members felt that their lives, at least one of the members' safety was put at risk.
Chief, before the officers approached the vehicle, would they have done a check on the plate or a check on the vehicle to see who may or may not have been in the vehicle?
Again, I can't speak to that. Maybe or maybe not. I mean, the reality is, when you're coming back to your vehicle and somebody says, hey, you know what, that vehicle right there has been here for a while, you may not have them. You may just walk over and make the inquiry. So at this point in time, I do not have that level of detail that relates to what steps were taken prior to approaching the vehicle other than the general picture that I've given to you.
Was the guy that or the truck armed at all? Or did he have weapons?
The member, the person who was in the truck is known to police, and the vehicle was stolen. And as far as anything else, again, that's an ASIRT issue.
Can you tell us anything about the past history of the person that was
Other than he's known to police, I can't divulge that information at this point in time.
Can you update his condition?
Still serious.
Did the officers recognize him and that's why?
No.
What was he doing there?
Again, that formulates part of the ASIRT investigation. Anything else would be speculation. But being in a stolen vehicle, being asleep, according to the information that the officers received, that the person had been slumped over the wheel, probably sleeping. It's hard to say exactly why, but those were the facts that they had at the time.
Chief, is it possible that maybe because he was sleeping, they startled him a little bit and took off?
You know, I have gone up, I've been a cop for 39 years. And I'll tell you what usually happens when you approach somebody that's asleep at the wheel of a vehicle. They may be startled, but their first impulse is not to bolt. Let's be clear. The actions of the person behind the wheel of a vehicle are their actions and theirs alone. We don't cause people to bolt. That's a decision that is made at the time by that driver, and it happens, I don't know how many, I would say hundreds of times a year, where we approach somebody who may be startled to see a police officer at the door. And I can tell you this, that in the vast majority of cases, the people go, "Oh, you startled me," and then they deal with it. This, to suggest that a person was startled and responded like that, that's part of the ASIRT investigation, but I would say that would be extremely unusual to respond in that kind of a manner.
Can you, I know you're not a medical practitioner and the guidelines that you're restricted on how freely you can talk here, but can you explain whether the victim's injuries are as a result of the crash into the house or as a result of the officer firing his weapon?
My understanding at this point in time is the injuries are as a result of the discharge.
How many shots were fired? Can you say that?
Again, that's ASIRT. My understanding is 3.
And
Sorry, both officers, chief, or just the one officer?
One officer at this point in time. I'm relating the information that I have up to the incident. One officer fired.
What's the duty status of the 2 officers involved?
We have a standard protocol that kicks in. It is 30 days relief from duty with, of course, full pay because number 1, there's the ASIRT investigation. They have to be available. Number 2, I would never expect officers to have gone through a situation like that to expect to report back to work. So what we do as a matter of practice and policy is a mandatory 30-day relief from duty so that they can go through the entire process of the investigation and deal with the event that happened.
have you identified who was shot?
Have we identified the officer that shot? Yes, we have. Sorry?
Not the officer, but have you identified the person that was shot? I haven't covered the story before.
Oh, okay. We have not. That will be the, again, ASIRT that deals with that piece.
Can you say where he was shot and his protocol to shoot at the person versus up the tires of their vehicle?
We have a strict protocol about not shooting at tires. The reality is that has proven to be over time far more dangerous. When a police officer is trained, he is trained to apply the appropriate level of force as determined by his assessment of the situation. So if a person is deemed to be putting somebody at risk, then the training is to eliminate the risk. If you start shooting at parts of the vehicle, you're actually contributing to the risk. So that we would never train to that.
So as a result, we can surmise that he shot through the back window of the vehicle at the fleeing driver?
I would never suggest that you do anything but surmise. You know what? At this point in time, I know there's a lot of supposition out there. I know there's been a lot of interviews with neighbors. Know what the witnesses are saying, but as I say, I am limited to what I can actually say officially. But I know that folks have been talking to you that are relaying information that you're already carrying. So.
Did officers try to stop the truck in any other way? Like, did they try to get inside?
It rapidly, it unfolded as quickly as we're suggesting. This was something that went from 0 to 60, figuratively speaking, in a split second. So my information is that there was no effort to get inside the vehicle or do anything like that.
Chief, can you speak to the role that civilians
Other than the information came to the officer by a citizen in the community who was concerned about the vehicle and the circumstances of that vehicle being in the community. And again, that individual acted appropriately. We need to know what's out of place in any community. If a citizen sees a suspicious vehicle, especially one that's been parked running for a period of time with an individual that's in it, slumped over the steering wheel or otherwise, our expectation is that the citizens or the people in the community would make us aware of that. And my other expectation is our officers would immediately react to it and go to investigate the circumstances surrounding that vehicle being there.
How about after the truck hit the garage? Is there anything you can say about that?
No, that's after the event, so I have to leave that with ASIRT.
Can you talk about any charges pending?
No, at this point in time. Any investigation that relates to the individual in that vehicle, we are investigating that part of it. What if laws were breaking relative to the person behind the wheel of the vehicle? But that part of the investigation is subservient to the ASIRT investigation, which takes the primary role in this case. So ASIRT gets our full cooperation as they continue with their investigation concerning the facts around the shooting.
And do you believe that the officer, I mean, I know it was a split-second thing, but did they think about the surroundings, that there's other houses nearby? I mean, we had one house that was damaged, luckily no one injured, but talking to the officer, did they keep that in mind, or they just kind of...
We are, you know what, I can tell you that officers are trained to assess a situation in its totality. And they are trained to assess risk and who's at risk and what they can do to mitigate risk. So I can't speak to what was going through their mind at the time, but I can tell you what our officers are trained to, and that it's a continuous process of assessing a situation, assessing risk, assessing any changes in the situation, and responding that way. So,
And you believe that they did all that?
you know what? At this point in time, I have no reason to believe otherwise.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you
Thanks
all.
very much.